Hey guys, welcome to BricksDaily Live, second episode. So this week we're going to continue posing, shooting, and editing, and letting you guys follow along with what we're doing. This week though, we're going to try something a little bit different. It's not going to be so post-process heavy. This week we're actually going to be photographing one of my favorite minifigures from Lego, and that's going to be Wonder Woman. As you can see behind me, I have kind of a fondness for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So what we're going to actually photograph is this one here. This is from the Lego minifigure series. This is a tie-in for the Batman vs. Superman movie. And it's a little bit different than some of the other Wonder Woman. And this one has brown hair. This one that's from the 52 comic series has black hair, and her headband is actually molded onto the hair. So if I take that off, you know, it's not there. But this one, it's still there, so it carries over. I kind of like that. Both of these have two painted faces, more aggressive look, and also kind of a smiling face. This one here has kind of a smirk a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see that too well there. But also for when I'm photographing these, one of the problems that I run into is, and Lego does this a lot with their minifigures for the girl or female minifigures, is you don't get as much range of motion with the arms with the hair. If you notice, as I put that up, the hair actually pops off. So it just comes right off. This one's a little bit better. You can get up all the way up there, but if you want to get that hand right up against the head, this one makes it a little bit more difficult. So actually what we're going to do is take this, and I have a different set of hair, or a different hair piece. It's the same color, but what I like about this is it's still long. And if you watch the Wonder Woman movie, she had kind of longer hair that was pulled back a lot. And I kind of like that look. But also, when I pull this off and I put this on, if I turn the head, I get a fuller range of motion without the hair becoming a problem. So with this one, if I have the head turned and I put that hair on, all of a sudden you're covered up and you can't see too well part of the face, unless that's what you're going for. For me, I like to be able to see all the face as much as possible, and I just like this because you also get good sense range of motion, hands all the way up if you need to, arms, and all the way back as well. So that way, if it's, you know, whatever kind of pose you're going for and stuff. So, but one of the things also that we're going to do is a little bit different today. We're going to shoot as much as we can in camera. It's not for any specific reason other than just to try it and see how much we can get in camera, so we can do as little post as possible. As much as I love Photoshop and everything like that, I just, you know, like I said before, we want to challenge ourselves every week. We want to do something just a little bit different, keep you guys on your toes, and make sure that it works out for what you're wanting. So this week, what we're actually going to do is we're going to use foil. This foil technique, there's videos online talking about how you can use this for like a DIY type shot, and you know, you can check them all out and stuff. It's actually a pretty easy thing. Most people have this sitting around their house. If not, you can go out and buy you know, foil at pretty much any store, even a convenience store if you need to. So what we're going to do is actually pull out a sheet, not too long. Now, one thing that you'll want to notice is some foil has a more reflective side, and more of a matte side. What we're going to want to do is, for today, we're going to want to use more of the reflective side. What we're going to do is actually kind of crumple this up just a little. Not too much. What I like to do is just kind of put my hand behind, like that, and just kind of crumple it up, just like that. If you crumple it up too much, it'll create a problem when you want to pull it back apart. It might rip the foil and everything. So just kind of get some nice crinkles in there. Doesn't matter how much, just whatever you want. And just pull it back out. You don't want to smooth it down. So like, don't set it down on the table and smooth it down or anything like that. You want to keep these bumps and everything. And what we are going to do is switch over to the little studio, actually set stuff up and take a look and see what we're going to do. Hopefully this works out and everything. The other thing is, I strongly recommend you guys try this at home. It's a pretty easy effect. It doesn't take a whole lot to pull it off. I mean, all it takes is, as you're going to see, just the foil and some lights and whatever subject you're shooting. So yeah, let's go ahead and switch over and see what we can do. Alrighty, so here we are back at our little indoor photo studio that I have set up. And what we're going to do with this is, again, we're going to, just like we did last time, I'm going to pull out my board. I just like to use this sometimes. We could set it all the way up, back towards the back. But I kind of want to be able to control how much distance we have between the background, the model, and the camera. So we'll just get this set up real quick. Okay, so we got that all set up. And then we're going to take that foil that we were just messing with. Remember, we want to use the shinier side. Let's add in a little bit more crinkles here. And all we're going to do is set this up right behind. And what's nice is it will just lean right up against here with no problem. If you need to, you could always use, you know, I like to use the blue tape, same stuff that's used for painting. It tends to not be too destructive. You know, if I put it on the board, it doesn't peel part of the board off or anything. I don't think we need to worry about taping this right now, just because we're only photographing a small Lego minifigure. Now, if I was shooting like Spider-Man here, you know, say he was standing up or something like that, I would probably want to get more of a coverage. Just a couple different sheets just taped up. You know, easily put this here and another sheet. And the great thing about this effect is they don't need to match. You just want to make sure you don't have a visible gap or anything like that between the sheets of aluminum foil and stuff. So let's get Spider-Man out of the way here. Okay, so also with this shoot, one thing I failed to mention in last week's episode is I was shooting with a 35 millimeter. For this week, though, because I might have to get up really close to the figure, and this is good. It has I love shooting with this lens. I think I may have mentioned that's a prime lens and everything. But this week we're actually going to shoot with an 85 millimeter. It's another great lens. I love this one. It's a prime lens as well. So again, that means I have to actually move in or out. I become the zoom myself. So it's just something that you want to keep in mind if you start photographing with a prime lens and everything. So let's go ahead and get this all set up to shoot. So we're just going to move this over, and let's bring in some lights. Now with this, I already know I'm going to need to have this top light, just because I have to light both the subject and the background. It's very important that you get good light on the background for this to work. So we're actually going to use all three lights this time. I think last time we just used the overhead light, which worked good for the effect that we're going for. And also, let's do this. So I have my tacky adhesive stuff. Yeah, and I love this stuff. It's always close by, and I always have it sitting all over the place. Like I even have a smaller another container full of it and everything. So I think for this, what we can do is just set this up. Just gonna kind of set that up there. We're gonna switch her face around to the more aggressive face. And let's see. Let's try. So we're just gonna set this up here. I don't think I'm gonna get all of her in frame. I think I'm gonna just focus more right around the torso and up. A lot of times with the Lego figures, when their legs are bent back, if it's painted, you hit a certain point where you get a different tone or different color, which some people are fine with. Other people will Photoshop that so it looks continuous. But just for this, I think we're gonna try and go a little bit light or higher up with the crop and stuff. So actually we might, let's see, try that, and then what we can do is maybe shoot up a little bit more. So let's see. Okay. So we're gonna put the lights up here. Gonna just kind of get that turned on. Like I said before, one of the things we have to worry about is lighting the background and lighting the figure. And because of that, you're going to have to mess around with light settings just a little bit. So let's see if we can move the camera in just a little bit better for you guys. Let's see if I'm going to try and mount the camera onto my camera. Okay, let's see if this works here. Okay, so right now you're just mounted to the hot shoe of the camera's just mounted to the hot shoe. And then as I photograph, hopefully you guys will see a little bit more of what I'm seeing in the camera. So right now, if we look at this, we want to make sure that we're lit up pretty well right here. So I'm going to take a test shot here. Well, let's do landscape here. Again, I'm going to be shooting raw. If you're not shooting raw or with the highest camera settings that your camera has, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. Again, it's going to compress the image if you're shooting in JPEG settings. And the camera then is deciding what information is going to be taken out. And you'll get a lot of, you can get some compression indications, some banding maybe, slight pixelations depending on your camera and everything. So I like to shoot raw in a large format. So it's always easier to go down in size rather than go up in post. So let's just see what we can get here. Okay. So she's still a little bit dark. Let's bring that up just a little bit. I think I'm getting some good effect on the background. And you guys will see that here in a moment once we switch over to the computer and everything. So let's see. And one of the things when you're taking these photos that you want to do with this kind of effect is you really want to watch your aperture settings and everything, because you don't want the background in focus. You want the background to be out of focus. That way it gives it what we're going for is a bokeh effect, or a bokeh effect, however you want to pronounce it. And if this is in focus, it's just going to look like crumpled up aluminum foil. And we don't want to do that. We actually want to use the blurred effect that's going to come in to the lens and to get the effect that we want. So let's try a couple shots here. So right now I'm just trying to get the right shutter speed and aperture setting. So one thing with this lens also, I can't go as, I have different aperture settings than what I could do with the other lens. The other one, I can get a lot more of a blurred out background. This one, I believe the lowest I can go is a 4.5. Looks like maybe a 4. We're going to try moving her back just a little bit. But with that, we're going to want to be careful. Again, we don't want to get too much of that actually in focus. right now I'm just focusing on different parts, doing slight camera setting changes just to see what's going to work best and everything. Let's see about turning lights down just a little. Okay, right now we're actually going to try a slightly different pose. Let's see. And if you notice here, get a little bit of the stuff that sticks. So you do have to be careful if you're using this stuff, especially with the Legos. Eventually it will really want to hold on and you might have a hard time getting it off, especially if you're using it on any more intricate areas. So it's going to be harder, such as inside the feet or the hands, or especially if you use it maybe on a stormtrooper or something. Oops, sorry, knocked over a light there. If you use it in like an opening like this, it's going to be hard to get it out, so you just want to be careful with that and everything if you're using it. So let's see. Get the shield back on. Lights back in just so we can make sure she's lit up. Let's see. So right now I'm just trying to shoot up to get a little bit more range of motion. Just going to be trying some different focus areas, see what we can come up with here. So one thing that I am trying to do is maintain a good rule of thirds. If you don't know what rule of thirds are, imagine the whole area is in your viewfinder is 3 rows by 3 rows. You don't want to have the subject dead center. You want to move it off a little bit to the side or stuff. That way it helps just create more of a dramatic feel. If you look at a lot of professional photographers, they'll have the subject typically just slightly off center. It doesn't mean you have to be like really far off to one side or anything like that. You just, unless the photo really calls for a reason for it to be dead center, you don't want it to be there. So that's what I'm doing right now, is just trying slightly different poses and angles to see what's going to work best. Okay, let's do another pose here. Okay, I kind of like how that looks there. Again, you'll see it when we switch over to the computer. But what I do want to do is, I wish the Lego figures would allow you to change the hair. So what I want to do is keep as much of everything in position as it was. We're just going to see how this looks. I mean, no harm in trying. I'm just going to take the hair. I'm just going to do a couple quick shots of that. Let's see. Get a couple slight different angles on it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is switch over to the camera, or to the computer, and we'll see what kind of shots we got and see what we can make of all this. Okay, so we are back here with Photoshop. We'll stick our memory card in here and we'll see what we can come up with. Okay. So as you can see, we have a couple different poses, and you can start to see that bokeh effect that happens in the background. So we just kind of want to find the pose that we want to work with. And we're going to actually open up all the extra hair photographs that we took. Okay. So, like I mentioned last time, I used Adobe Camera Raw for all my processing and everything for my photos. It's a great plugin. It comes with Photoshop and everything. So, and it's the same engine as what is being used in Lightroom. So, what we're going to do is just take another quick glance at these. Let's see, we don't need that one. Okay. So what we're going to do is just go in and mess around a little bit with some of the settings. Just really bring out some of the shadows. I do want it just a little bit cooler temperature wise, so I'll drop that down. And we're going to kind of punch the vibrancy up as well as the saturation, but not too much on the saturation. We don't want to overdo it. And we're going to go in and just do some sharpening. I always like to add in some sharpening, especially with the toy photography and everything. One thing you'll find a lot of times is stuff might look fuzzier. The paint might look a little bit fuzzier in the macro photography, and then you go back to the figure and you're like, oh, I didn't think it looked that way. It does. It's just the camera's able to pick up a little bit more on it than what your eye does at first. So don't be alarmed if that happens or anything. And we're going to actually, let's see, we're going to do an adjustment brush here. Let's see what happens. Just a little bit here. And now the adjustment brush just does, like it says, adjust part of the image. And we're just going in and adding in some different detail to the background. Trying careful not to get her. Okay. So we can mess with the sliders again, and it's just affecting that background because we're using the adjustment brush, and so just the areas that we painted are going to have that effect. So we can mess with the highlights and bring them down a little bit, make it just a little bit less white going on back there. So we do want her to be the primary focus of attention. Maybe we'll bring the saturation up on this just a bit. And maybe the exposure down. So maybe not that much. Bring it back up some. I'm going to bring up some of the blacks just a little bit. And the shadows. Again, you're just going for what looks good to you. If you're doing like professional photography or anything like that, you'd want to pay really, really close attention to what your settings are. And also keep in mind your histogram. If you see large amounts of spikes and stuff like that, it means data's being lost. So if we go back over to the regular settings, or for the overall, we'll remember this setting here. But if I punch this up, you'll see all of a sudden all this data in this area. If you can see that on the mouse or on the screen there, where my mouse is, all that data is gone and stuff. So it's not there. It's just being blown out and everything. By contrast, you don't want to go too far the other way. For one, it's gonna make it look dark. You can't see stuff, but then all the other data is gone. So you want to pay attention to your histogram, know what's going on, make sure that there's data all across that histogram. It's making sure that you have good range and everything. So just watch those settings and make sure that you don't get carried away and everything. So we're just tweaking it just a little bit more, making sure it's the way we want. And now, because I also photographed the hair, I want to make sure that the same settings carry over from the photograph to the hair. So what I can do is over in the left, I can just select the images that I want, come up to the little menu, and click on Sync Settings. Now, you can see there's a blue box around this first one. It's going to copy all the settings from that photo and apply it to all the other ones that we clicked on. So if I click on one of the other ones first, the blue box will be around that one, and then it will copy all the settings from that photograph to the other one. So we want to make sure that or keep in mind which one you're copying the settings from. And we're going to just sync the settings. And this comes up and it'll just ask, what settings do you want to copy over? And we do want to go ahead and we're going to copy, unless I know specifically, like, oh, I don't want the split toning to be copied over. If I didn't want that, I would just uncheck that one. But right now I want universally all the stuff to carry over. The one thing I'm not is I don't have the local adjustments selected. If I did that, then the brushes and stuff like that would also carry over. But because we photographed something different, we don't want to have those local adjustments or the adjustment brushes carry over, because it'll look weird. It'll cut into the image differently and all sorts of stuff. So just make sure that's not selected. We didn't do any kind of cropping, so we don't need to worry about that. And spot removal is the same thing as what we just talked about with the local adjustments. If we went in through camera raw, maybe we cleaned up around her bracelet a little bit and we used spot healing and stuff like that. If that was checked on the other images, it would apply the same spot healing and stuff like that. So we just want to leave that unchecked. You could have that be checked, like if you're doing some focus stacking and you had a lot of images that were being photographed at different f-stops and everything like that, you would want to make sure some of those adjustments would carry over. So right now we're good with what we have. We'll click OK. And if you notice, the same settings were applied to those pieces of hair and everything. I don't know if we're going to use that, but it's just better safe than sorry, rather than getting in front of the camera, in front of the computer, and then going, oh, I wish I would have done this, and then go back and try to redo everything, or all the lighting settings and everything. So you just, shoot to be happy, don't shoot to regret. So we're going to select all three of those images again. Decided already I'm not going to use the second one here, so it's just not selected. And somebody had asked a little bit more about opening images from camera raw and what settings I use and stuff like that. So if you just click on that down at the bottom, so for a lot of my stuff I use the Adobe RGB 1998 color settings. I mean, you can choose whatever you need to. I seem to be happy with Adobe RGB 1998. Find the one that's good for you, or if this is getting printed somewhere else, make sure you're using the right color space. Nothing's worse than working in a color space and then you send it off to a printer who uses a different color space, and all of a sudden your colors come out just looking different, either muted or darker or oversaturated and stuff like that. So this will give you a better indication of on screen. And since the stuff I do typically is for on screen, that's why I find the Adobe RGB 1998 to be good. If I know I'm going to be going to print, I'll use a CMYK color because it will give me an understanding, unless I'm going to go to a photo printer and stuff like that. Again, just pay attention to what color space you're using and everything. I also resize all my images to make them just a little bit larger as well. So for me, I take the longest edge. So on here, it's going to be the top, and we're going to enlarge it to 24 inches. And also I'm going to set the resolution to 300. Again, it's just that way I know it's at a good print setting or print quality. So this means I could go just without any enlargements afterwards and print this image 24 inches wide with a resolution of 300 dots per inch. A lot of photo places aren't printing 300, so I could even, when I send it out, I could even bump it up a little bit more and still be happy with the results. And this works for me. Again, find the settings that work for you. Be in control of your workflow, and just that way you know exactly what's going on. And then also I open up all the objects in Photoshop as smart objects. Again, so it's non-destructive and everything like that. So we're going to click there, and we're going to go ahead and open up the objects. So it's going to open up all three. And one of the things I want to try and do with this is, like I said, I want to do as little post editing as possible. So a lot of this I was trying to get in camera and everything. And you might notice that she's a little bit more off to the right, like I was talking about before with the rule of thirds and stuff like that. You want to have it off center. Now you might be looking at it thinking, well, that's really off center. And that's actually, as I was photographing it, I thought of something that I want to do, and it'll hopefully make sense here in just a moment. So what we're going to do is, as we're working in Lightroom or Camera Raw, I noticed some artifacts in here. So what I'm going to do is, just for this, just come in, and right now I'm using spot healing with content aware turned on. So what it's doing is the areas I paint over, it's looking at it and going, okay, and it's going to make its best educated guess of what I'm wanting it to look like. And a lot of times it comes pretty close. Sometimes it'll come out pretty wild, and if that's the case, then I'll go back in with just a regular clone brush, or just start exploring different ways of getting the effect that I want. And one thing that you'll notice with all your toy photography that you do is, no matter what you do, there will be dust and stuff. Just realize that it's going to be there. Just in between clicks of the camera, a piece of dust can land on the toy, so you're gonna wind up usually having to go in and clean some of that up, and that's just what I'm doing right now. Okay, let's go in here. We're getting that all taken care of. We should be good with that. We got a little bit there. Okay, so I think cleanup wise we should be good. And actually, you can see here, if you remember earlier, I was talking about when you, with the Lego figures, if they have the painted legs, you'll, once they reach a certain bending point, the paint color will change. So you can actually see that going on here in the photo. It's going from blue all of a sudden to red. So what we can do is I'm actually going to create a new layer. And again, we'll try first with the spot healing, see what that does. I don't think it's going to give us the effect that we want. It's going to over sample and everything. Yeah, see, that didn't really do too much at all. So we're just going to grab our clone brush and we're going to enlarge that, just our brush size just a little bit. Depending on what we're doing and where we're at, you really want to make sure that you're aware of what hardness setting that you're using. So right now I want to make sure that up here where it says sample, I have current and below. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the layer I'm on and all the layers below it, and that's where it's going to pull in the data for the cloning. So we're going to just come down here and choose that, and the brush will actually, inside the circle, will show you what it's going to kind of look like. So I want to bring the hardness down just a little bit. Yeah, so you can go in and kind of paint that out. I'm going to bring the paint for the pleats of the skirt or her outfit up. I'm just trying to get rid of that red. Now the other thing is we don't want the sword to look odd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy from over here because it's still blue. I'm going to just come right across there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back in with my healing brush, or the spot healing brush, and just kind of go over some of this. And it should make a good assessment of what I want to do. So it's looking a little bit better. I'm just trying to clean up some of those seams from the clone stamp that I was using. See, it's thinking. see. Yeah, we need to clean that up a lot more here. Just grab something there. Okay. Now this might be too aggressive of a brush here. Yep. Okay, so that should, it's a little bit of what we want. As we zoom out, let's see. Okay. Now if we wanted, we could add another layer, and if I set this to color, you can see what would happen here. If I select if I come in and choose kind of a gray, even a white could work, choose the brush tool. If I start painting, it will take all the color out. Or it'll appear it's taking all the color out. So like if you wanted to kind of have no color cast going on to the metal, you could do that. Let me zoom back out and see what kind of happens with that. So we could do that. I think actually for this I don't want to have that effect, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys. So now what we're going to do is pull in, let's see which one of these we want to use. We're going to pull this one over. Actually, we don't need all of it, we just need this portion here. So we're going to just bring that. Oh, yep, we brought the whole thing. Let's just do this. We're going to edit and copy it because it's as a smart object and wanted to bring that whole layer over. So we're going to do that. I'm going to paste that in and bring that over just to. And we're going to shrink it down. Okay. Let's see what happens if we put that in like that. And I'm actually going to convert this to a smart object now. That way I can go back in, I can re-rotate it and everything like that pretty freely. Do a layer mask, and we're going to mask out the parts that we don't want visible. If you remember from last week, a layer mask is like putting a transparency over the top of an image and stuff, and then coloring on that transparency with a black marker. You won't see what's below the black marker. And so what we're going to do is actually paint on the layer mask with black, and so it's going to hide parts that we don't want visible. And then if the opposite would happen if we want something on that layer visible, we would paint in the layer mask with white. And then any shade of black and white that you use, affects how much of the is shown. Think it makes it a little bit more transparent or hidden, just depending on how dark of a shade or how light that your shade is that you choose. I'm going to bring my hardness down a little bit. And we just want to kind of go in, paint some of that out. The reason I do the layer mask is if I came in, I accidentally did that, and I went and did something else or lost the ability to undo, with the layer mask, I can just switch to white and paint back over the area that I want visible again. Again, it's part of that non-destructive editing, so nothing's actually gone and stuff. You're just making parts hidden so it, you can still use it later if you need to. So if we bring that in, and we're going to increase our brush size, bring the hardness down. Let's go a little bit bigger with our brush. No, bigger still. No, too big. There we go. What we do is we just, again, paint out the areas. So we want the front of the hair to be visible because this is behind. Go and fine tune it here. Now this image probably would have been a good candidate for focus stacking, even though it was just the one. So when you're shooting with different camera settings, if you shoot with your f-stop at a certain point, just a millimeter can be the difference between what's in focus and what's out of focus. So if I were to redo this, one of the things I would do is take a couple shots of the face a little bit more in focus, and I'll show you how I'm going to try fixing that here in just a moment. And again, we're just looking to see how well this works. I haven't ever actually tried it, and actually I know some people who are Lego enthusiasts might have a hard time with the fact that we're photoshopping the hair like this, because that's not a natural position for that hair piece. Now, one of the things also is this hair is behind the rest of her hair, so we need to actually go in and blur it just a little. So we're going to unselect the layer mask, and we're going to select onto the smart object itself. And because it's a smart object, we can apply a filter to it and then come back and modify it a little bit and tweak it and not be stuck with just that one setting. So I use Gaussian blur a lot. Right now I'm going to hold down the option key so it pulls up the dialog box and it doesn't just apply the settings that I used last time. So what we do is we're just going to kind of blur out what's going on in the hair. This seems to be okay. Okay, so just mask out. And right now I'm going to use a very soft brush because it's already blurred. We want to make sure that we don't have any fine hard lines or too many fine lines between the hair and the background. So just going to come back in, slightly larger brush. And at that point I'll just lightly click along I don't tend to do a hard continuous brush stroke. That way I can just go in and be more in control. While the program's great, you want to make sure that you are doing exactly what you want and not having the program make up all the decisions and stuff. So again, we're just testing this out, seeing how it looks. I think it looks a little bit too hard, so I think we'll go ahead and we'll not apply it. Just kind of keep that there. Now for the face, what I was talking about is if I go back in, I can look through some of the other photos that I have and see if I have one in the same position, and that one looks pretty good. So if I just open this up, it's going to open up in Camera Raw again, and what I can do is come in here and go down to previous conversion. It's going to use all the settings that I used on the last image that I opened up and processed in here. So that's there. And what we're actually going to do is open this up. And let's see. Since I shot handheld, these shots aren't going to line up perfectly with each other. So if we bring this down, you can see what wound up happening here. The dust removal is in a different position. So if you wanted to use that new one, you could just try dragging everything over and placing it in the same location as what happened before. Now I can tell what happened between the other shot and this one is the camera position both changed and everything like that. So what winds up happening is that completely changes the angles and everything. So I would actually need to go back in and clean up those spots if I wanted to switch images. But what I'm actually going to do here is just to show you what you can do. Since I have her here, I'm going to bring this down. Again, put this image on top of the old one, ignoring what's going on right now. I'm actually going to change my blend mode to difference. You can see it gives you this weird kind of psychedelic look. And all I'm going to do is use that to kind of line up as close as possible. If you notice, what starts happening is once the pixels and everything like that start lining up, it starts turning like a solid black. So like right here, what's going on with the arm is that you can't see the edge of the arm because those pixels are lining up. And this will also show you how much the camera shifted and moved between a single shutter release. And it's just things that you'll want to keep in mind and everything like that. It's not the same photo unless I was using a tripod. But even when using the tripod, you'd be surprised at just when you're shooting with a macro lens, how much just it can change just gradually. So this is actually going to be pretty good. I mean, I could try going in and adjusting the sizing and everything like that to get it exactly where, you know, it might be perfect. So if I do that, I could try doing that and see it gets a little bit closer. It's not going to be perfect because maybe I shifted a little bit to one side. Now we'll see. Go ahead and we'll keep that transformation. And just for, we're going to close these other image files. We don't need to save them. It was the hair pieces and the image that we just opened. So now with that layer still selected, I'm going to go back up and change that to normal. And I'm going to hold down the Option key or Alt key and click on the layer mask, and it's going to completely mask out everything. So it's just like that. And now what I'm going to do is, the only reason I brought this over is I want to get the eyes and the mouth in focus. And again, I want to show you guys how you can do this. If you take a series of photos, how you can save an image by possibly grabbing a part from another image. So I'm going to just paint over the eyes. I'm painting with white on a layer mask, and that's going to bring in the more in focus mouth and eyes from the image that we just opened. And we should be okay with that. I mean, if you want, we could go in and paint in the headpiece. Just get a little bit of it in focus. I don't think we need to do too much. Okay, so there's that. And the reason why I had that a little bit more off to the side is it gives me an area to actually add text to this image. So we're going to say Wonder Woman. Let's get this bigger so we can actually see it. And let's see, we're going to go into Safari here and see if we can pull out a little bit of information about Wonder Woman. So I'll bring that over here. And let's see, where might we find? Actually, let's just copy Diana, Princess of the Amazons. And we'll just create a new, or I'm duplicating that text layer. I'm going to add this in, paste what we just did, and we're going to shrink the text. And let's actually enlarge her name. And we're going to make this just slightly thicker of a font, not too much. And I'm going to set some guides here. I'm going to just set that so I can make sure my font is aligning. I'm going to bring that down in size. Get that right where we want it. Select it again. And I'm actually going to increase the spacing between the letters a little bit. Just going to get that right over to that guideline. Let's see, about 72. Yeah, that works. Right now, this is remembering some of the font settings I used the last time I used the font tool. So the amount of space between those lines is obviously too large. So we're going to really bring that down here. We could go in and manually control that. So let's try 300. Bring that up. And for this as well, we're going to increase the spacing, and we're actually going to make this even smaller. Okay. It's starting to look better. Bring that up a little bit closer. Now I could also do this by having each line of text on its own layer, but just since we copy and pasted it in, we're gonna just make do with what we have. Now let's see. Let's make Wonder Woman. I'm just using the eyedropper tool to pull from a color that's already in the image. I don't think we want to go with like an orange just because it's not going to stand out too much. So we'll go more with the white, and that works. And we're going to do the same thing with Diana, Princess of the Amazons. Okay. Now, with both of these, we're going to add in a drop shadow. And if I want it to apply to both layers at the same time, but only apply the effect once, if I select both layers and I hit Command G like that, or I drag those down to the folder at the bottom, it puts them into a folder itself. Now, if I double click on this, I can actually apply layer styles or layer effects to every image layer that's inside that group. So I'm going to just add in a drop shadow right now. We don't want to overdo it. Let's bring the size down just a bit. We don't want it too sharp. So I think that's looking good. The Princess of the Amazons is, I think the font is just a little bit too thin, so we're going to go from ultra light up to regular, which will make it the same as Diana. If we do that, let's see. We kind of want Wonder Woman, I think, to be the main emphasis. So one way we could do that is adding in a line. So if we add in just like that, but let's try making it a little bit thicker. And one thing you'll want to watch is your fill and stroke. So I'm actually going to go in and remove that. Let's see. So if I were to make that red, we're going to make it just a little bit thicker. There we go. And we're going to change that color let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead, pull this open. Okay, I think that's going to work. Now it's automatically applying the drop shadow because this layer was added within that group. So you can see, let's just say, call this text overlay. And this is the effects that go into that layer style. If I click there, it'll hide those, but we have the shape. And we'll call this line. And then Diana, Princess of the Amazons, and Wonder Woman. And for Wonder Woman, let's see. Let's increase the spacing between that just a little, not too much. There we go. If we bring this over, let's bring this whole part up. Okay, we're going to add just a little bit more effect. We'll see how it looks here to the Wonder Woman part. But I want this layer to be outside of the group because I don't want a drop shadow applied to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a black box on a new layer. So I already created the layer, but I want to go with black. And I'm going to hit, since black is my foreground, I'm going to hold down Option and hit Delete. And it fills that box with black. And I'm going to go up to Filter, and let's go down to Render and Lens Flare. Now here, we're going to create just a lens flare. I don't know which one yet. I do tend to like the Movie Prime just because of the angled light streaks that come off. So if we click OK, and if we just hit Filter and do it again, it'll apply the effect over the top of it in the same settings and everything. Now I'm going to do Command L, and we're going to adjust the levels on this layer just a little bit. I want to actually make sure it's just a little bit darker. Make sure the blacks are richer. Click OK. And now, with that, we're going to set that to screen. And we're going to add that in. Let's see, should we have it there? Just kind of on a curved letter. Usually an O would be a nice spot. And we'll do it there. I'm just getting it right in where I want it. Let's see how that looks up close. Okay, so I want that Movie Prime, that blue, what was blue, to kind of rest right on the, where it would be right against the curve of the O. So I think that'll work. Now with that, one thing we could do is if we hit Command U, it's going to bring up hue and saturation. Now this one I'm doing destructively. I could apply a layer style or adjustment layer and just have it affect just this one, but I think we'll be okay for this because it's a pretty easy effect to recreate if we need to. Now if we want, I can click on Colorize, and it will change everything in that layer to a different shade or hue. So we could add in more of a blue streak, or we can come back and do more of a warm color. Maybe that'll work a little bit better because of the background that we have going on. So if we do that and we click OK, let's take a look at how those, the difference between the two. I think we'll go with that one and drop the opacity down just a little bit, right about to 90. Okay. So I think that's working pretty good. Actually, the drop shadow is a little bit hard. Let's actually do this. We're going to apply this globally. We're going to do a, let's see what happens if we do a bevel and emboss. Let's bring that size down. We just want it to be very, very faint. Let's see. We can try that. Okay, and what I'm going to do also on the Diana part, let's do this real quick. A new layer, and I'm just going to draw a box. We're going to hit G for our gradient tool, and we're going to make white our foreground color, and I just did that by hitting X, and it swapped out the black and the white and just switched their positions. So we're just going to apply a linear gradient rather than the radial I just did. Okay. So if we do that, let's see if I can put it here. And it's going to give it a drop shadow. But by clicking and holding down the Option key and clicking right between the two layers, you'll see the cursor changes appearance. That gradient that we applied is just going to apply to the layer directly below it. It's not, and that layer below it's going to act kind of as a mask. We're going to drop down the opacity or the fill a little bit. And it just gives a little bit more dimension there. And let's see if we can change the drop shadow a little bit. So a little bit dark. So if we bring that down just a little bit. And one of the things that we can do is we can actually apply multiple drop shadows and have like this one come, let's see. I wanted it to come a lot farther down. Bring up the opacity. So you can get that kind of farther down. Bring up the size and drop the opacity down. Okay. Okay, so as you saw, what we were able to do is just take that one figure, just Wonder Woman here. We swapped out the headpiece, and we used just a simple sheet of foil, gave it a nice crumple effect, and then just pulled it back out. Remember, we don't want to smooth it or anything like that, because we want those divots, because that's going to be what causes the DIY Bokeh background and everything. So that kind of works. And just set it up, make sure light's shining on there and also on the figure itself. And you'll have to mess around with your lighting and stuff like that if you don't have a lot of lights. And you get the background just lit right. try using a flashlight or something like that maybe. You do have to be careful. Some flashlights are too harsh of a light on the figure and everything. So we'll switch over here and we'll take another final look at Wonder Woman. And when we do that, hopefully you guys found this helpful and everything. And I would love to see what your guys' photographs look like if you try this effect. So go over to BricksDaily on Facebook, just BricksDaily.com. I'm sorry, Facebook.com/BricksDaily, and share with us your photos. Or if you're on Instagram, just tag your photo either with BricksDaily or BricksDaily Challenge. Just want to see what you guys are able to create with this, and let us know if you found it helpful and useful. If you have any kind of gels, you can put them over your lights. And if you look in the photo here, let's switch over to it real quick. The orange and everything that's inside the photo is actually caused by putting a daylight diffuser over the LED box that we used in the photo. So just having that adds in a lot more dimension and everything like that, and you're able to add in more dimension and stuff like that. So you could add in a whole bunch of different lights shining on there if you have them and stuff. If you don't have actual gels, it's hit or miss on whether it'll work or not for you. Sometimes it doesn't diffuse the light enough, but you could try using colored saran wrap and placing that over the box, and you might have to do a couple layers and stuff like that, but you can get blues, greens, and stuff like that, put it over, add that all in there, and see what happens with the lights and everything. Again, we would love to see what you're able to do with this. Share it with us, tag us, BricksDaily or BricksDaily Challenge, hashtag BricksDaily Challenge, and that way we can see and everything. Or share with us over on Facebook, and let us know what you think. If you like these videos, please subscribe. Also click on the notification, the bell icon on YouTube, so that way you're aware of when we're going live and also when we post new videos. Also follow us on Facebook, again, facebook.com/BricksDaily, and share with us what you're doing. Also let us know in the comments or however you want to get a hold of us what you want to see in these videos. We want to make sure that they are a resource to you and that you find them helpful. And if you have questions, we'll see if we can work them into future episodes. If you have maybe a specific editing question even, we can try and do that. And as usual, thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing what you guys are able to create. And we'll leave this again with the final image, and then look for this shortly on social media. Thanks, and take it easy.